Hello my friends, welcome back to This Week in Social Media. We're talking about Michael Parkinson's AI podcast. We share the reports that Netflix seems to be getting more viewership and may link to a TV trend over it taking over viewership from BBC One over Christmas. We share reports that Netflix has overtaken BBC One in regards to viewership for a couple of months last year. We also talk about the fact that Meta is cutting 5% of its workforce. We share about what we learned from the NVIDIA CES presentation and keynote livestream that was launched at the start of the year, as well as hearing some updates from YouTube, along with also some new exciting growth updates on how the growth engine actually works. Back at the start of the year, we heard the first murmurings of an AI podcast, as reported in The Guardian. When announced last year, it promptly created an apocalyptic reaction. It was said that some were digging out a national treasure and reanimating him against his will, with some reports claiming that it was rather silly and took a lot of work than we should really think about. And when normal podcasts are created, they only really need one or maybe two people to sit down with a set of microphones and have a conversation. However, the Talking AI podcast takes a whole team to be able to run AI Parkinson. The team behind the AI podcast said to The Guardian, quote, "It's a full room, but we do usually need everyone here," said Mike Parkinson, the presenter's son and one of the podcast producers, along with Ben and Jamie. Quote, "It's too much work for one person. Ben has got enough on his plate just making sure that everything works. He needs me and Jamie to have our eyes and ears. There's the idea where we're creating a thing that is going to strip away human jobs, but we're not. We're probably using more people to work on this than we could if we were just running a traditional talk show with humans involved." In the same report, we heard that the lengths that the team went to ensure that, quote, "I help the various organizations across the media write policies and legal and ethical responsibilities of use of AI, but last year everything stopped being hypothetical and the podcast was commissioned and then we started working on it." There was of course, core questions about can AI be good enough at interviewing someone in person. Well, in the same report, we heard about one of the people who had gone to the studio to be interviewed by AI Parkinson, and they said, quote, "who entered the studio at the end of the day promoting his new TV show, British Gardens, and he seemed to to be unruffled and a bit weirdness being addressed by a dismembered voice of a dead guy, but although offered up a few interesting nuggets about his life and the growth potential and as the interview proceeded. The main challenge seems to be it seems to be like being interviewed like a brick wall. There is no reaction to what you say. I know personally, whenever I'm interviewing people and I help them feel more comfortable when it comes to being on camera, it's always good to give ideally a visual cue when you're recording video content, but obviously if you were just helping someone with an interview on a podcast, you could also then have audio cues as well, because you can just mute that person's microphone, and it allows you to help them kind of feel like they're really being listened to and that they're doing well and they've got a level of validation. Quite a lot of this report also talked about the fact it feels a bit weird because you kind of want the interviewer to like you as we would normally be conditioned, but it is, as I said earlier, like being interviewed like a brick wall. So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Let me know in the comment section down below. However, with the team claiming, like any AI, it will constantly be getting better as the series progresses. So, quote, "the series is evolving and in theory, the Parky you hear at the end of the series will be much better than the one at the start," end quote. They believe that the whole point of the show is to explore the relationship between AI and humans. After the writer from The Guardian shares how he felt about being interviewed, he also asked if the team was years away from having a virtual representation, so a form of hologram, I would assume. Quote, the visual representation of Parky is subject to reacts to. We're a bit far off. Is it years away, decades away even? They answered about 5 to 6 weeks, he said. Like it or not, the future is already here. So that was something that I was personally very shocked about, because it did seem and does seem as if they are moving pretty quickly. Now obviously we'll see whether this happens or not, or whether this is unlikely to be the case. But so likely anything with AI nowadays is going to get better and better. Does this mean that we're all going to be, all the biggest podcasts in the world are going to be run by an AI presenter? Or is it just going to be another hype wave that potentially is just being pushed by the tech bros? What do you think in the comment section down below? I'd love to hear what you think. I think it's an interesting experiment, an interesting idea to see technology being used in this way, but I'm unsure if it will become specifically moved forward or specifically likely to continue to be used as much, unless the viewership and the reaction to these podcasts, and it becomes, I think, cheaper and or more efficient to create the episodes. Because I think if you remove the whole human element specifically, surely aren't you removing the whole essence of having a conversation? But that's just my view. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. As we reported last week, Meta steps away from fact-checking. There has been some reports that people are stepping away from the platform as well. As was reported in Forbes at the start of the year, quote, but within less than 48 hours, the first noticed by TechCrunch, the move prompts by a virtual surge in Google search traffic to how to cancel or delete your Facebook, Instagram, and Threads accounts. The news site describes the data pulled from Google Trends as explosive, and the consequences of Meta's new policy could have serious implications for this type of post, hateful and violent speech, and misinformation that could be spread faster online. As we talked about last week on the show, when Mark was being interviewed on the Joe Rogan Experience, he also explained that it's time to get back to the roots from the freedom of expression, Zuckerberg explained, adding that it's also starting to, he originally built the social media platform to give other people a voice, specifically. So this is part of the reason, or part of people kind of leaving the platform. But it also does seem in the reporting and in the research I've done that it also is going to be a very exciting year, or very move forward year. So very lots going on, Meta claims, and I think that Mark specifically is the reason why he's looking to cut that 5% that we talked about in the intro of this video, is just a corporate precision in regards to like how they remove the lowest performing employees. It happens to be in synergy with this report as well, that people are moving away from the platform, and we're in a position where they were maybe slightly concerned, or slightly more concerned about the quote large amount of misinformation that potentially will be coming to the platform. But what do you think? Are you going to be specifically stepping away from Meta owned specific social media platforms, or do you feel this is just a better world where more platforms are entertaining the idea of community notes in the similar way to X did, as it removes more, removes the likelihood, or removes less company bias specifically? Let me know in the comment section down below. We also heard that Netflix has overtaken BBC viewership for a couple of months last year. As reported in The Telegraph, quote, viewing figures from BAM, the UK official rating body, revealed that Netflix audience was 43.2 million during September, October and November last year, knocking on BBC's 32.3 million, knocking them off the top spot for the first time in decades. However, the BBC One did take back first position over December, as some strong IPs were sharing their Christmas episodes, such as, quote, Gavin and Stacey, Wallace and Gromit, and Call the Midwife. Within the same Telegraph report, it did say, and a BBC spokesperson did say, to quote, to compare a single broadcasting channel to the entirety of a subscription-based service in a streaming-based service on demand world is meaningless. Quote, the BBC portfolio is twice the size of Netflix over the last year and bigger as streaming on demand services are put together. BBC iPlayer has fastly been growing across TV streaming services in the UK. Within the same Telegraph reporting report, they did put a poll for their readers that show that Netflix has 63% of the 7,550 people watch Netflix more than the traditional BBC or the public broadcaster. Quote, last year, data from Ofcom, the television regulator, found that less than half of Gen Z users regularly watch traditional TV. End quote. Quote, around 49% of 16 to 24-year-olds watched broadcast television during the average week in 2024, which is a decline from 76% in 2018. Does this show a wider trend, specifically with people moving closer or moving to the streaming on demand services, or do you personally watch more still traditional telly in the UK, or specifically are you looking for more old, that older stream, or are you looking to go to YouTube to get your news? Are you looking to go to YouTube to get your entertainment? That is a kind of push that I've been seeing, but also personally, as someone who does consume some stuff on streaming on demand, I've also noticed that there's new, the larger blockbuster films are now basically just going directly onto streaming, along with what we would call a reality TV show, or some reality TV shows are just being directly broadcast and paid for by Netflix to be pushed onto the streaming on demand service. It gives you, of course, more options, but I would be curious to hear what you think in the comment section down below. Are you still watching traditional telly? Do you still trust what the BBC reports, especially when it comes to news? Or are you leaning more towards more independent YouTubers, perhaps, like people like myself and others, of course? Or are you kind of taking a bit of both, right? We covered in a couple of episodes ago about the fact that people, I think it was around 23-24% of people do consume news content on social media, and that is part of their news cycle or part of how they get their news. So I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. We also heard that Meta is planning to cut 5% of the lowest performers faster than it would do normally. As reported by the BBC, quote, in a memo to staff, boss Mark Zuckerberg has said he's made a decision to speed up the firm's regularly scheduled performance-based cuts as it's going to be an intense year, end quote. Meta employs currently about 72,000 people globally. Mark does claim that, quote, this is going to be an intense year and I want to make sure we have our best people in the teams, he wrote. The more that comes off the heels of big decisions as Mark Zuckerberg includes to move the end to the company's fact-checking and diversification programs, as we already reported earlier in this show. The last big cut that Meta made was back in 2023, when the company cut around 10,000 positions as a cost-cutting drive after Mark Zuckerberg declared it was a year of efficiency. And this also comes in when he also cut 11,000 jobs in 2022. So Mark is not new to the idea of planning cuts specifically. The BBC also shared that Mark seems to be changing his own public image, likely to do with the change in the US government. As we reported last week, he feels that more masculine energy in the workplace is a good thing or a positive thing. And it's likely to do with the threats and the concerns regarding Trump saying that he was going to go after Trump, and basically because, from my understanding, his dealings or his manipulation or his input in the presidential race in 2016 specifically. So it looks like Mark Zuckerberg has kind of caved to those threats from Donald Trump as well. In the BBC report that we're using for the show, quote, when you're running a company, people don't want to see you being ruthless, a person and who likes the idea of crushing those who he isn't competing with, but when you're fighting, they're like, yeah, of course. I think that in some ways, seeing me competitive in sport is like, oh, that's just the real Mark. Do you personally feel that this is one of the things that it takes to run one of the largest companies in the world, or is this actually just a, is it just a nature of fact? 2025, you have to cut costs, you have to keep an eye on costs, etc., or is it, not necessarily? Is it something that would happen regardless of where we are economically as a whole? In that respect, I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. At the start of the year, we also got a NVIDIA kind of keynote live stream from CES at the beginning of the year, and they shared a lot of their new updates, and I wanted to share my thoughts and some of the things that were shared to save you the time watching it. As always, I'll be linking down below to the full report and full keynote if you wish to watch it. The keynote opens with a promotional video showing a handful of use cases about why tokens can be helped and help grow AI. The CEO started talking about the history of the business back in 1993, where they helped gaming become possible on the PC. Followed by, in 1999, the first programmable GPU to making modern PC graphics possible. The following on to 2006, where they created CUDA, where they found it was hard to explain what and how it could be used. However, in 2012, we see the first use case being to start to create AI models specifically, with them showcasing the idea of where they felt AI was likely to go, and it's specifically moving from predictive AI, moving to generative AI, as we're seeing more nowadays in such programs as Photoshop and equivalent, then into agentic AI, as we're starting to see more now, so that they do talk a little bit later on about the idea that you can have a AI work assistant, an AI process, or an AI person who is going to be sharing and helping a more senior coder or more senior engineer be able to code, and would fill in that role for maybe a junior. Now, there is of course that debate where if that's a good thing or a bad thing, so let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think AI and some of the changes coming from NVIDIA are going to put people's jobs at risk, and is that necessarily a bad thing? There is a side argument that says about, is it going to create more creative jobs or not, or are we going to be in a position where actually we're all, potentially in trouble to have our jobs removed, and then of course our income, and are we going to be in a state where actually we need to look at a model potentially where the government pays out or gives the necessities for those things that could potentially be manipulated? Just some ideas for you to consider. Leading into physics AI for self-driving cars and general robotics. Again, we'll touch more on those a little bit later. After a little bit of a history lesson, we're also shown the new GPUs, which we come to expect this time of year, with the claims, everything in the video, and the following footage is shown and rendered in real time on the Blackwell cards. So they're the new cards that are coming to the market very, very soon. We talk on detail about how they're using AI technology to cut down on the processing time so that they can create better looking video game environments by only rendering 1 out of every 4 frames, and allowing generative AI to be able to create the following 3. So it's going to generate those pixels, obviously drastically cutting down the amount of rendering required. After going into some more specs and breaking down their new card, after sharing the prices for a 4090 performance, it's going to cost you about $1,500 at the moment, because obviously it's the older generation but top end card, and now you can get the same performance, which is kind of standard when they release a new GPU line, which is the 5070, for only $549, and that is nearly a third of obviously the top end of the previous generation, with also sharing that the 5070 Ti, 5080 and RTX 5090 at $749, $999 and $1,099 $1,999 for the top of the line GPU, with also showing they're also releasing a set of laptops with equivalent with all the GPUs in as well. So the bottom of the line, so the 5070 is going to be £1,200 for the laptop. The 5070 Ti is going to be $1,599, with the 580 being $2,199, and also the 5090 being $2,899 directly from NVIDIA. Then the keynote moved on to talking about how we can scale AI and how the next steps of AI training are really going to be done, and really going to be the back end in detail. And for those layman's listening to this video, I'm going to try and keep the tech stuff to inside the presentation, but give you a brief synopsis. So the first was a pre-training scaling, where you need more PC power to be able to understand and train the data that you have. So this is where training a model like ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Gemini from Google, for example, would really use in that respect, and really use a lot of GPU power, allegedly, because there has obviously been some concerns and some questions about how DeepSeek specifically did do what they did for the cheapness. And we're going to be doing a standalone video after this show comes out, or during this show coming out, talking about that. So stay tuned for that if you are interested. As every day passes, we see more and more content being posted online, and NVIDIA are claiming that this means that AI will be using it better and better, because it's going to basically create and use all of the stuff that's being added to the internet. Now, there is being a large conversation, obviously, about the copyright concerns and the plagiarism concerns regarding this as well. But as we record this episode, it does seem like OpenAI are specifically, which is the main culprits of this specifically, are winning their legal battle related to making the argument that, well, all of the content was on public service and on public domain, therefore copyright doesn't matter. Bit of controversial. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think this is scandalous? Do you think this is doom of all of our jobs? Or is it just going to become a tool that could be commoditized, therefore it's going to become cheaper for everyone to use? But actually, it might just be not be the best tool to regurgitate crap, unless we learn how to use it, of course. The CEO goes on to then explain in detail about how using human feedback on these AI outputs, so I'll use ChatGPT as an example, will carry on making the models better for years to come, as it can use those feedbacks, use that data, and the more we use it, the better the model will get, because it will learn from itself, was my understanding of the presentation. Talking about whether AI will start to break down a problem step by step and start to understand how to learn to create the best answer. So we're starting to see these in the new models that are coming out, where it's not just simulating that data, but it's actually starting to quote unquote think about what it's doing and how it's actually thinking about creating that answer for you as a customer. With the details going into how the new GPU can help data centers save money on power and remove some of the largest bottlenecks from the older systems that they were using. And again, like anything specifically, again, we're going to get into more data and then crunching those numbers and be able to help build Blackwell cards to be more useful for AI learning. The fact that we've got AI looking to scale and becoming more scalable and lower cost will mean it'll be a lower cost for you and I to use, but also it will become easier as a whole, because it will cost less money to run, because the more efficient these cards can be at processing all of this data in these data centers, it will likely mean that the corporations will option A, be in a position where they just take more profit share, or B, actually be in a position where it gets so competitive in the market that it gets completely commoditized, and then that's a win, because we could be in a situation where nearly every AI is free and open source because of how much market or how much people are in the market. So you can't necessarily mark up your price, because people will just go to the one that's pretty good for free, and that will then mean, and there was some talk I know on the internet last couple of weeks about the fact that ChatGPT specifically, the model isn't even profitable yet, because they don't have those larger scale user base to be in a position where they're bringing enough revenue to actually cover the costs at minimum that running their data centers is. So maybe Blackwell is going to help with that. We'll have to see in time. By building agentic AI, we can work with softwares creating, building their own systems to create better software products as a whole. So this is a benefit if you're a massive developer. You can use agentic AI to create better softwares to actually then create, and that's I think where a lot of people are really going to win in the AI generation or AI forefront where we are now, which is the AI age. I think that the people who create the models aren't necessarily going to be the ones that win. I think the ones that create the software that uses AI and how we see AI being used is where the real money is going to be made. Then we also got an introduction into NVIDIA Neo, which is likely going to be an AI workforce for you to use alongside your employees. Just a quick point on my view. I think a percentage of you will get worried about this potentially replacing your employees as a whole. And it's a fair question. They also talk about the fact that you would have an onboarding process for this AI workforce. And for you, the CEO does talk about the fact that we would need to put guardrails on them. As we previously have already reported last week, as part of the Joe Rogan experience when Mark went on, they talked about the fact that ChatGPT started copying itself in a closed environment that it's not actually meant to do because the team at OpenAI were trying to see what would happen if they did try and shut it down. Turns out ChatGPT doesn't want to be shut down. So this is where the kind of Terminator-esque problem becomes, because it will get to a point where it can rewrite its own code and also better itself over and over and over again, but also potentially see, or the theory is that we're going to be useless as humans and damaging the future, and it will deem that we're unnecessary and potentially, cause a apocalyptic situation. But of course, that's all theoretical at this time. But that is the concern for those who've been living under a rock for the last couple of years. And the CEO talks about the fact that your business's IT department will become your AI workforce HR. So when it comes to onboarding and making sure that your AI workforce is doing its job correctly, they will likely do that. They've also shared all of this information to be open source, likely to help them create a better product, because the more you can share, the more you're likely to be in the position where the more data you have, in turn it can learn more, in turn it becomes better, in turn NVIDIA actually benefits. Probably likely to do with why they're putting it out for free rather than trying to pay or get people to pay for it specifically. The CEO also shared about how it could be help across Pacific industries, and explained that nearly every coder in the world, the CEO believes that they'll have an AI assistant to help them with coding tasks, that if someone does not choose to have one, they would of course be not as efficient as someone who does. They also shared some of the ways that they feel this is going to work. For example, people who need to study so they're studying lectures and etc. They can use this AI to create a better use case, so a podcast or an audio version, or even some, I imagine, will become a video from the lecture notes, and they can convert a document into those things using AI. Along with AI, can also scan a set of code and point out security vulnerabilities in real time as it's been specifically worked on. So as a developer is working on it, they can specifically kind of use it to bug check in that respect as well. The CEO then moved on to explain how an AI assistant could be built into the new Windows version, and shared how it could be used in digital art processes to help AI create some on the concept building stages. Personally, I think that this could be an absolute game changer for anyone in the video production world, as we could use it to create storyboards and help articulate to our clients in pitches for medium/large productions. But I imagine, again, it will come down in scale. The more we do it, the more it happens, into even smaller jobs where you can use it to really fine-tune what you want your frames to look like, what you want your videos to look like through storyboarding as well. So it did look really, really cool and really quite promising, to be honest, in that respect as well. After the CEO then moved on to talk about physics AI, which goes into detail on how it plans to be used in the world of robotics moving forward, and explains some of the challenges that are needed to be conquered, followed by showing a new demo of a real-life use case. The AI as they processed in building, as again also open source, likely due to the fact that the more people use and give the product data, the better it will become overall. The CEO then goes on to talk about in detail how the new physics AI is going to revolutionize warehouse spaces with robots working with your human employees. After this, he then goes into a talk about how their AI can help the automotive EVs move closer to become self-driving, and also announced that Toyota and NVIDIA are going to be partnering together to create a new generation of EVs, as well as some stats on how many miles are given each year and how he believes it will be mostly driven by EVs like self-driving cars in the future, and he believes that, quote, it will be the first multi-trillion-dollar robotics industry. They are also sharing the launch of the next generation computer for the car called Thor, as well as Thor not only being usable in car technology, it's also going to be potentially used in robotics, with the big claiming that it's, quote, the highest standard of functional safety for automobiles, end quote. It also seemed that they are using AI to create scenarios for building driving cases where they can train the AI to learn more and more about how to drive safely, using first recorded drives from person-driven vehicles, but also then using generative AI to create variations on those to allow the AI to basically have an infinite pool of stuff to learn from, to then know every possible reaction and then be able to react accordingly and feed that into the computer to be able to make the roads safer, was the claim, was the point. They also shared more information about their plans for the robotics industry, with them going into a lot more detail on how they can help create robotic tech and use the Apple Vision Pro to act into a virtual robotic screen, so the operator can create training data without using up real wear and tear on that robot specifically. Ending the keynote by explaining about Project Digits, which is an out-of-the-box supercomputer that was previously quite large. They managed to scale that down. So they did point out that back in 2016, the CEO had delivered their first supercomputer back to a small startup known as OpenAI. For those who don't know, OpenAI has gone on to create ChatGPT, Midjourney, and equivalent in regards to AIs as well. He also wishes that Digit to become smaller. During the keynote, it does become smaller, quite a cool effect. They also show some great tech and talked about how their top secret chip is used and claimed that it can be available for some time or so. I'll leave, as I said below, the full link to the keynote down below for those who may be interested. But that's kind of what we learned. That's kind of what's going on with NVIDIA. Do you think they're making the correct decision? Do you think that AI is going to suddenly get infinitely better and we're all out of jobs and actually it's going to take over the world in a very Terminator-like style? Let me know in the comment section down below. We also heard a handful of updates from two videos from the weekly update from YouTube as the team came back from Christmas break, where the studio team was looking for more feedback to create a better studio experience, asking viewers to go to the form below the video that I'll also link down below to share their feedback with the team working on YouTube Studio. As well as us hearing the fact that you can now add Q&A stickers into your live streams on mobile devices to help engage viewers in real time, as well as some important improvements related to shorts templates that now support images, so importing images into your shorts, which and also now getting a pre-record timer up to 10 seconds when it was previously only 3. With also them confirming they've heard some of the feedback related to the mini player and have been playing around and will be doing some experiments with how that operates, with us also hearing that they're rolling communities to other creators out to other creators in the coming months to focus on keeping conversations going. The previous community tab is now going to be renamed as posts specifically, as well as pointing out and making the TV data specifically for users to become a little bit more seeable. So that's all of the updates specifically regarding YouTube. But we also had a brief video, about 20-minute video, talking about how the YouTube growth algorithm has been updated and changed for 2025. So when they opened the video, they started talking about the quote growth engine and how it works. And we need to understand in the first place that this growth engine is viewer led. So quote, when a viewer opens the homepage, YouTube is going to pull a set of videos for that user to likely enjoy, and works in a very similar way that we ask for recommendations to watch as well. So when it comes to automating word of mouth, where would you also, and then repush or etc. videos in the news? So they were talking specifically about when you were, say, going to the cinema and you were looking for a new film to watch, you would ask your social contacts about what they're hyped for, about what they enjoy, about what they're looking to create. And YouTube specifically, and the main game changer from this video for me was that they pull videos rather than push your video, right? So it's a viewership led thing, or a viewership led algorithm rather than a creator led algorithm. They also did talk about the specific time of day and device type that choose when videos are being pulled specifically. So they noticed and have noticed some changes in how people consume content. So for example, they use the example of some people would rather watch news and what's going on in the morning, and then when they maybe open YouTube later on in the evening, they're more likely to watch community entertainment perhaps, or comedy perhaps, or those more channels rather than news necessarily. So they do take those into consideration, and they do look specifically for signals to learn about what different content is appealing to that viewer. They also said that some of where they are going to come down to the best to pull the right content for the right viewer at the right time, where they also have confirmed that one number to help, or there's not one specific algorithm trait, so not necessarily your CTA, not necessarily your watch time, etc. And they try to talk about context, right? So they use the example of a music video. Does a music video necessarily, just because it isn't watched 100% of the time, does that change how specifically how enjoyable the YouTube video is? They also shared about in some videos, people want to get straight to the heart of the video, don't fuff around, don't piss around in that respect, and that can lead and can help with watch time. So if you're watching this as a YouTube creator, maybe that's something you should consider. But also remember that YouTube is looking to create session length and a good brand remembering, so that people are likely to spend more time on the platform over a lifetime, over a longer period of time, which in turn means their lifestyle or their brand or their life value for YouTube is going to be higher, because the more times I go on YouTube as a viewer, the more ads I'm going to consume, which in turn means the more money YouTube and YouTubers are going to make. And that's kind of what they lean into about creating a good overall watching experience for the videos they pull for users. They also touched on the fact that you can gain some more traffic, specifically by dubbing your videos into different languages. But something that they did suggest is you also upload a title in that description, and also create a description and a title, so that media data in that language as well, and also to focus on having a library of dubbed content, because if someone, say, is going to consume my video in Spanish, they're probably going to want to consume some other videos in Spanish. So rather than having, say, 5 videos in 16 different languages, I should mostly focus on having 80% roughly of my content that's being watched on a regular basis to be transcripted or dubbed into those different languages, so that people can again increase their session length on the platform. They also talked specifically about the normal fluctuation in views that happen as you upload content, and the fact that you shouldn't feel like it's the end of your channel if your views are going down. They're very normal to fluctuate. So just focus on creating content that you feel isn't going to have a saturated audience, and quote, sometimes it's better to move on to a different topic or style of video, as quote, audiences can be saturated on that type of content. They also talked about the fact that you may want to scale out what you're looking at, so seasonal content specifically. So they used the example of the US election. When it was the run up to the US election, there was a lot of people looking for content talking, fun enough, about the US election. But when the election was all done and dusted, they moved away. They went back to their own watching habits. And also some people just want to watch some content that is about X and Y, and then they kind of get bored of that content. They got what they wanted. It's normally tied to what they're interested in at the time, and those changes can adapt and change, of course, with the person. So if you are noticing a dip, ask yourself about consistency, ask yourself about the quality. Are you adding value? But also test, and also potentially look at, is there a gap or another idea you have to create a format that's maybe underrepresented, or maybe has a larger total addressable market specifically. But that is all they discussed about the growth engine specifically for 2025. So that was also going to end the show. So if you did enjoy this video, thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me. I'd love to know what you think in the comment section down below about maybe this growth change and what we found out from this video, but also what did you think about some of the other stories that we covered. So thank you ever so much for joining me once again. If you did and you're new to the channel and you would like to see more like this, then why not be subscribed? You can always take it back later, and I'll see you very, very soon. Take care. Peace.